All right, Javier, we have our men's semifinals for King of the Ring locked in. Main event tonight. Finalize that. And we now have Javon Evans against Jay Uso. And also, we already knew Dominic against Obafemi. Are you surprised at Jay Uso winning the main event tonight? I thought LA Knight was certainly a distinct possibility, less so Bryce Keys, but I didn't rule it out. Finn Balor, they kind of made me think they might do just because it'd be a heck of a semifinal match against Javon, and they were trying to kind of make it seem like this was a new chapter for Finn Balor and gave him some attention. So I give WWE credit for kind of paying lip service in a storyline and almost meta way too at times, that trying to make you think anybody could win this one. So yeah, Javier, your thoughts on Jay winning?
The fact that Javon is on the other side, I didn't really think it was going to be Balor. I did give Royce a shot because he was one of the people that Reigns mentioned at one point. So I thought that might be a possibility. I don't think Obafemi is winning the whole thing. I think there, my feeling. I know it's already been speculated online that something's going to happen with Brock to set up their match. Mm-hmm. So I was thinking that if that's going to be the case, then it would have made more sense for Jay being involved, because then you start have the friction with who is he going to choose? Is he going to end up choosing Roman for reasons that we're going to get to? And if not, it would further the eventual Roman Cody storyline if Jay goes after Cody. So I think there's a lot of story possibilities with Jay. Like Obafemi I mentioned, and Royce Keys were the other ones. It's probably be the top ones, and Seth Rollins too. But that ship sailed. I don't see Dominic or Javon winning the whole thing.
So your prediction is Jay against Oba, and then Brock interferes in that match?
Yeah, probably something along those lines. Or it could be Dominic and Jay, but I think people will be more excited to see Oba and Jay.
Yeah, because, we've been talking for weeks on the show about Brock interfering and either costing Oba the match in the semifinals or the final. And, that seems where everything is pointing. Pretty obviously so. But it doesn't mean 100% is going to happen. But, a lot of things have been pointing that way for weeks since the brackets got announced and Oba advanced, especially with Dom. I like the idea of Dom in the final. I don't even hate him winning at all, because I just imagine, I think I would enjoy the comedic aspects of it more than whatever. And I still can't believe people look back fondly on Xavier Woods as king. I just thought it was embarrassing for him, how he portrayed himself. But I think Dom as a heel could really act like it's a huge deal. But to get there, they would need to basically screw Oba out of it and then screw, Jay out of it with storylines. There's not a real storyline for Javon to get screwed out of it. So I'd assume that Brock would cost Oba, and then you would have something bloodline related that would cost Jay. And so, I still think it's a bit unpredictable. I don't imagine Javon. To me, Javon's the last of the four. Like he'd have the longest odds to win.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if I wouldn't even put him in the finals, to be honest, because it doesn't really seem they did that whole thing with them teasing. By the way, I missed Raw, so if anything happened on Raw, I don't know. But like 2 weeks ago, they had teased the whole he was like snarky or snippy with Penta, or he wouldn't shake his hand. So I don't know if they even have an idea what they're going to do with him. I expect them to have like a good match and be one of those where 5 minutes before the fall he goes, oh, he put in a what's the phrase that they like using? Spirited or no? What's the phrase?
He
was game. He was game.
Yeah. There's often a tell on commentary. Yeah. He put up game, as they often say after he loses, but sometimes they say it right before someone loses. And there was another phrase on Raw on Monday that Cole used, and it was like, okay, now we know he's losing. Whenever they start patting someone on the head, in the matches in progress, they're trying to prepare people to absorb the loss. Okay, so let's break down the developments with Jay and Jimmy and Jacob and Solo, and then the context of Roman. We'll certainly get to Cody, Gunther, Sammy, and other happenings on the show and the women's side of things too. But it's related to this. So Jay advances. He told Cody, I'm coming for your title. You're supposed to face the wrestler on the brand you belong to. I can't keep track anymore because everybody's on every brand. But that's the match they're specifically hyping. They haven't hinted overtly at Javon or Dom headlining SummerSlam. And the problem with Dom, as fun as he'd be as King of the Ring, when the stipulation is you get to co-headline SummerSlam, that means you're moving that. If, for instance, I'll get back to my initial point, but if Dom were to win, then that means he's going to be. Oh God, is he officially on Raw? Seriously, this King of the Ring screwing up my.
Dom is officially Raw because that's where what's left of
So he would end up having to face Roman if they abide by that. But on the chart, Jey Uso has a red box around, and that means he's a Raw wrestler, and he's saying he's going to face SmackDown's Cody.
I think you get to choose because both in two storylines they have Roman saying that you're going to choose Cody, and over the Judgment Day, Liv and Raquel, whoever ends up winning, they're saying they're going to take it from Ripley. So I don't think that they're.
But then there's been misspeaking. We talked about it on the Raw post show that they said with the women you have to face your own brand. They did with the men. They kind of avoided it, and then someone in the chat said no, they did say it. So I genuinely think they're sending mixed signals about what happens here. But if you have Jay talking about facing Cody, unless they're saying it doesn't. Honestly, it's a bit of a mess, or I'm a bit of a mess. I think it's a bit of a mess on their end, as far as this goes.
I mean, because I like I said, I didn't see this week's, but just the story, just listening to what the people are saying, I have to assume that's what we're going for. And the commentary might have screwed up and said, might have mentioned they might have changed plans along the line, and then whoops.
Yeah. Darrell, by the way, on the chat says Jay and Cody cannot headline a night of SummerSlam in my eyes. So let's talk about that and assume it's a possibility because they're obviously talking about it. Powder Repeat says, Jay's no longer a main event. He's been demoted to right-hand man. Is there enough storyline support with what's going on with Jay and Jimmy and Solo and Roman and that whole and Jacob? Can you tell a story where that could, for instance, be on the same night that Brock and Oba maybe headlines, or a women's match headlines? I know they're worried about Rhea right now and her injury. Is that a match that can be part of an ensemble of top matches, Javier?
Yeah, I don't think it would be the one that you're going to be buying the pay-per-view, so to speak, for. That would likely be Obafemi and which is going to steal the night. But it wouldn't necessarily. That's not a problem because that's just a step in the storyline. So it's not like going to be a big crescendo to an end of a storyline anyway. So you could do that as part of a greater story involving the greater bloodline story with the eventuality that's going to get to be Roman and Cody at some point. Or some other kind of permutation, in how things end up developing. So I'm not sold that that's going to be because it could possibly be a three-way Sammy Gunther and Cody for the title at SummerSlam. I'm not expecting us getting a finish for a title match on a SmackDown. So
yeah. So let's talk about the storyline with Jay, Jimmy, Solo, Roman, Jacob, and kind of broaden it out a little bit. Are you digging this sequel of Bloodline drama? They're pulling Solo back into the conversation. Jacob approached him and said he had a message from the OTC saying they want you back in the family, and Solo kind of blew it off and then said, Jacob, what happened to you? Jacob seems to be a good soldier right now. Just not letting, he's letting it slide the way Solo talks about his role. The idea being he's a man of his word and he lost. And so he's going to abide by it. That's a babyface thing to do, even if he is now serving somebody who in a way is being talked about and framed more as a heel than anybody in the company, which is Roman Reigns, even though he's still getting the biggest pops of just about anybody other than maybe Obafemi. And then you got Jimmy, playing his role. And there's a dynamic there with Jimmy and Jay, but also Roman confiding in Jimmy certain things and then confiding in Jay certain things. So they're playing, multiple angles, which was one of the strengths of the original peak Bloodline era. So Javier, I know you loved talking about that and assessing it. What's your assessment now?
Yeah, I mean, it's they've done very well. They have a lot of. It doesn't feel like anything's like obviously pointing in a direction, but whichever direction they decide to end up going, they've done enough that you could buy it for the most part. So because I thought there was going to be probably more conflict between Jay and Jacob, but that's kind of simmered a bit. Likely internal issues between the two of them. I think Roman. Everybody's framing Roman as the heel, but he hasn't. He did not use a help for his match with Jacob. And there wasn't really any help for for Jay. I made the same mistake LA Knight did. Jay made, Jay really didn't get any help from Jimmy during that match. So, LA Knight's hitting the drum hard that, this is the bloodline, the same thing as before, and there's going to be cheating. We haven't seen that yet. So I think it's more along the lines that, Roman has chilled a bit in terms of, and decided to do things a little bit more honorably. He's still, he's still hitting the same beats he had before, which is why, it's understandable that other people would see it in that way. But I think it's more like a slower official face turn for Roman. Where it'll leave no doubt at the end. I mean, now it's designed for you to doubt it. Is this the same Roman Reigns we had a couple years ago that people were terrified of? So I think that's kind of the whole direction of the general gist of the story that we're going to go. The stuff I'm really intrigued with is Jacob Fatu really buying, or is Jacob Fatu really being honorable and staying with the group? Or is Solo getting to them? This is the most interesting Solo's been tonight. Is the most Solo's been for quite a while because he's making good points. He's making points that could actually, he's a free man. He's not part of this, this cult that they're trying to bring him back into. So he's making good points to Jacob. Did that get to Jacob? Or we're going to see, if this does end up being a Bloodline versus MFT battle, them pulling Jacob away, would even up the odds. I think Solo does somehow end up back in the fold because I think that with the little crossover we had, Bullet Club crossover we had with Tama Tonga and Balor, I think that's and the stuff that Tama issues has had with Solo. I think we're going to end up seeing the MFTs more break up sooner rather than later.
And so if Solo goes back to the Bloodline and Roman, he's been the leader of his own group. He's demeaning, he's being critical of Jacob for being subservient to Roman. Do Roman and Solo just have an understanding that there's two ends of a table to be the head of, as he made a reference to if Jay were to beat Cody for the title? How do you see that working out? I mean, obviously, I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just wondering, do they play up tension, or does Solo kind of know his role and accept it, even though he's used to being the leader of his MFTs?
Well, I mean, it depends on how they get there and how much time they're going to develop into, they're going to spend developing a story between them. He could basically go around the same thing and beat it, beat him into submission, or Solo decides to, I'm just speculating here, like basically closer to fantasy booking. Like let's say that Tama does dump him and he finds himself on an island by himself. He might end up going back to Roman with the idea of undercutting him and being a snake in the grass. There are a lot of directions that they go, which is why I'm intrigued because like nothing's like really solidified based on what they're telling. I don't know if they're doing it like just throwing like little bits and pieces of crumbs out there just to keep their options open, or if they have like a general direction they want to follow. Like I've mentioned before, I'm a huge fan of comics. This reminds me of the days where where it wasn't written for 12 issues, but it was an ongoing forever. And the writers would do that, just drop little hints in there, and some of them played off like soon, some didn't play off until like 20 years later. Yes. And some were forgotten, so well, this is kind of what it feels like to me.
Yeah. Sailor version 3 in the chat says more heel face confusion. The wrestlers, LA and Solo, are portraying Roman as a heel. Jay is acting like a heel, but doing a babyface entrance. Also, Solo came across as babyface-ish in that promo with Jacob. So I'm with you that I think they're throwing a lot of stuff out there with the idea of being, we just want multiple options. We want fans to think multiple things can happen, so we're not just giving away what's going to happen by only hinting at one thing. It's sort of like having several finishers that you can win with. So it's, people aren't waiting for just one move to end every match. They want multiple balls in the air, multiple things that people can speculate would make logical sense. I think they have their decision made in real life behind the scenes. I don't think they're hedging, but I don't rule that out either, that they're not like, well, let's have something else in case someone gets hurt or the crowd reactions go a certain way. But all that said, wherever they want to land and whatever their intent is this too much ambiguity with, do we cheer Jacob or do we cheer Roman? Do we cheer Jay, or are we kind of siding, are we like, if Jay wins, are we rooting for him to beat Cody or not? There's another example. You got LA Knight. Are we rooting for him? He's bad-mouthing Roman, and Roman's the guy getting the biggest pops. Solo is making sense, as Sadler said. He came across babyface in talking about Jacob not being abused and subservient to Roman. Is this just in a deliberate, Javier, a deliberate attempt to just stray from clear-cut constitutions that drive people to either like or dislike somebody, and they just want this web of sort of ambiguity? I argue ambiguity leads to ambivalence if they do it too often and too much, and I would say they're straying into that right now, where fans just aren't really rooting for a certain outcome. And I think one of the driving forces of pro wrestling as a art form and genre is getting the fans to root for a certain outcome and either give it to them or you take it away, so they have to wait for the next time. That's how sports works. You want to win the Stanley Cup, you want to win the NBA championship, and there's an agony of defeat or a thrill of victory. This just feels like they're fancying themselves prestige TV writers, and it might land in a good place, but right now I do question whether people are going to buy tickets to watch the big screen and a bunch of characters that they're not sure whether they like them or don't like them this week. I think what people want to do is go to the building, pay money, and sit and have a unified environment where they're all cheering for somebody to win and someone else to lose. And I think they're risking that while they're telling this more complex, nuanced story. Is it a necessary evil, or is it a bad philosophy, or do you just like it and think TV's important? Let's not worry about crowd reactions at arenas. Let's just worry about doing modern day wrestling storytelling.
I'm going to argue my usual stance. Argue against my usual stance. Why the entire point is to get you invested to watch what's going to happen next week. I'm not cheering necessarily. I'm lying here when I'm saying this. I'm not necessarily cheering for anybody at this moment, because I don't know where everybody currently stands and what's going on in their head, and I'm speculating on what's going on. So I'm not going to cheer for someone, but I am invested in the storyline. I am going to tune in next week to find out who's going to backstab who, So in general, the babyface heel dynamic is what you want, because it's essentially the simplest way to do it. It's you have one person you want to cheer, one person you want to boo, and that's easy. Gets a little bit harder when you have two baby faces, because now you have two people, the people cheering, just letting anybody go who he wants. Two heels are usually bad because nobody likes them, and but in this story, I think ultimately it's the Roman Reigns redemption tour. So I want to see him do the right thing by the people that he has around him. I want to see him with Jacob, groom Jacob to be what he did for Jay, because he did make Jay a more important person. Mm-hmm. He mentioned, they're two heads of the table. Now, where's the drama? Let's say Jay fails, and then it looks like Roman is favoring Jacob, and Jacob's going to be the other head of the table, and Jay gets jealous because of the relationship, and then you could play with those. So as long as you're telling a compelling story in that respect, you could get away with it. Obviously, if you could tell a compelling story with a strong babyface and a strong heel, that's like the trifecta, and you control the storyline, so you can do that. But in this case, I think the story is compelling enough where I want to see where the pieces lie. We haven't seen where the pieces lie yet, and I want to see where the pieces lie when the dust settles.
Yeah, I don't get the impression they're deciding, let's not have heels and baby faces because that's passe and we're so sophisticated and modern and we know better and the world has changed and storytelling has changed. I think they just have a variety of characters that they're interested in telling a story of a tangled web who naturally, to a great extent, naturally feel like they're acting true to their constitution in what drives them. Roman is acting kind of like Roman, a little prickish, a little dickish, a little control freakish, a little self-centered. But they throw stuff out there like that's what you have to do. It's like you can't be friends with the boss. You can't go out partying. Go out partying with your coworkers and you complain about the boss. Roman's a boss. He has the weight of that. His sort of nice guy the time that he can relax and be nice is like at home with his family. But when he's on the job, he's kind of got to lay the law down. There has to be an alpha. That's how they've established that's kind of where Roman's coming from. The question is, does he go too far? Does he abuse it? Does he seem to enjoy being on a power trip in a way that is unbecoming? And I don't think they've been clear about that, perhaps by design or perhaps because you and I are having a lot more in-depth discussion about it than anybody there has. And I hope that's not true. I doubt it's true, but I don't rule out that they're not fully talking this through because of just the nature of the work of the cycle of putting out 2 shows per week. And as you say, trying to create compelling content, but kind of losing sight of the fact that when you want to sell tickets, you got to get people excited about wanting to see a particular outcome, not just being intrigued like it's a TV series when it comes to ticket sales. And that's, I still think if you do what it takes to sell tickets, you'll probably have a pretty good rating on your TV show. But if you start focusing on just doing compelling TV week to week, you can kind of lose sight of what drives ticket sales.
If you're flagging that the next show is going to be an important show, that we're going to see a major step in the storyline and a major development, I think you could get away with that, entice people to say it, to go into it. Like next week, it's going to be what's enticing you for next SmackDown is who's Sammy going to side with. I know you have the babyface and all that stuff. Just ignore that. Come on, for this point. Mm-hmm. But that's the most intriguing thing would be is Sami Zayn going to side with either, or does he side against the other and neither and attack both of them and then the match is a squash, never happened, and then he gets thrown into a 3-way. So that's the different. That's where the intrigue is. So I think you could get away with it if you're deft at writing the story, So, and I think right now, and you have because the fans want to see Roman. I mean, that's your plus right now. As long as Roman shows up, they want to see him dominating right now. They don't want they're fine if people cheat. If the entire bloodline comes in and helps them win at this point because they want to cheer Roman. So now, the moment you bring in Obafemi, you might switch that because Obafemi's cool too. So you might want to see Obafemi be the one to dethrone him.
That's what I want to jump in here and say is, do you want fans cheering Roman? Like we say, at least they're cheering Roman, like that's a good thing. But what that means is nobody cares anything about the stories you're telling or how you're portraying anybody. They're just reacting to who the biggest star is. So what that means is they're not invested in the week-to-week personality traits of the big star. They just think it's their job to show up for the rock concert and sing the lyrics, as I've been talking about. Like it's this big communal experience. There's a big star. We had a clunky women's match at the beginning, and we get this ridiculous "This is awesome" chant after they mistimed 7 moves in a row. Like nobody cares if a match is good or not. They don't evaluate whether it's good or not. They just want to go to a building and do the communal chants, regardless of what's happening in front of them. And I feel like, unfortunately, there's a chance that some of Roman cheering Roman is just the residual of him being a big star. So we cheer the biggest star who has the most charisma. If I'm WWE, I go, shouldn't they be kind of questioning him a little more than they are? You want to be able to control the fans with really compelling stories, as opposed to just having the fans reacting because they're part of a communal experience where they just cheer big stars and they're not really attached to the story that's being told. And I fear to a degree that's happening because, you got LA Knight out there kind of trying to correct course and go, I know why you're booing me after that. I like Jay's thing too, but we got to stick to business. I want them to have a handle on what the crowd wants, but I also want them to know what the crowd wants, but I also want them to have more control over how the crowd reacts. And I feel like they're just kind of like, it's not the worst thing in the world to have fans popping for your stars, but it does feel like it's a bunch of people showing up who haven't been watching the TV show, just going, hey, there's a big star I paid to see. And I don't know. This is a TV show with week-to-week scripting and storytelling, as you say, Javier, that's supposed to kind of compel you to watch next week and intrigue you. But it's in front of a live audience. And if, like, you need to have that crowd invested in reacting in a certain way. And I know they think this is Awesome Chance and singing Seth's song and, you know, Cody Rhodes is like a sign that there's a success. And I think it's a distant second to what you really want, which is fans reacting to the stories being told, not just the stars in the communal chants that have become a tradition. So full circle, I do not know what they want. I don't with Roman, but I do know from watching him recently, I don't think he's been a particularly admirable person unless you just have sympathy for all bosses in the world who have to be dicks to their underlings.
I have faith. The reason I have more faith for this storyline than others is because during the first Bloodline run, people started cheering Roman really early on when he would come out. But then once the show started, they got in with the people that you're supposed to cheer, and they would boo Roman, cheer Sami Zayn, cheer Jay. They were pulling for Jay to break out of him. I think people. I think they're. It's not that people are just, particularly specifically the story, are just cheering because he's cool and stuff like that. I think that people right now are they're invested in the story, not necessarily the pieces of the story.
Mm-hmm.
So you would cheer the villain getting stronger because you know that you know how a story develops. So you cheer the person until you see who the person is that is going to take him down. The Marvel series was a massive success. Why? You had a character like Thanos, and people were cheering the character of Thanos, even though he, kills half the life in the galaxy. Why? Because they see how badass he is, and he knows that the more badass he is, when it's time to bring him down, the good guys, you're still cheering the good guys, and you get the more. It does go a little bit to meta, but that's kind of, I think, that where people in general are. So that's why I'm not super worried, because as long as you're invested in the actual storyline they're telling. Yes, at some point, like I said, he's being dickish to his underlings in the way that he's talking to them, but he hasn't crossed the line. Like, he hasn't burned anybody's house down, like we've seen, the storylines, or dug up a corpse or anything. Yeah. So we haven't gotten to that kind of extreme. And yes, so I see, so Reigns, I see as a flawed individual. He right now has positive traits, has negative traits. Same thing with Jay. Jay is like a live wire, ready to blow up at any slight. But in general, we like him. Jimmy is chill and doesn't like really do anything. Kind of plays like, all sides, and then so he's kind of like not really like developed in any specific direction. So the characters are right now like what are driving the story.
All right, we could delve more into this and look at each person, but let's we've got a couple of people on hold who want to join us. I want to throw some chat comments up. I want to introduce the show. I want to talk about Cody, Gunther, and Sammy, which has been really fun. I'll just say this: I am intrigued and enjoying this Bloodline storyline. I have been consistently defending it and a booster of it in every show that I've done for a few weeks now, after some doubt that I had about some things. I am expressing concern as a fan and booster of where I think this is going, but where I think it is going, Javier, is different than you, because I think, and I don't know if it's wishful thinking or just me saying it's what I think is the best thing, and not everyone agrees with me, it's the best thing. So therefore I'm reading into things that point that direction. But to me, I think, I won't say the obvious thing to do, because I think it's not obvious, but I think the best thing is for Jacob Fatu to be the babyface, Roman Reigns to be a heel, and that they're laying the groundwork for him not to ultimately be a good guy, but ultimately be the same old Roman, because you have someone in Jacob Fatu who fans adore. He is fresher, he's younger, he's more available, and you don't need baby faces right now. What you need is opponents for Obafemi, because this right now, as much as we're talking about we're going to talk about Cody tonight. We've been talking about the Bloodline. this is starting to become the Obafemi business that they're in. If you look at what magic there was on Raw on Monday, and I wrote about it, talked about it Monday in the written report on the Torch, people who didn't see Raw and read the report, or obviously watching our post shows or the Keller Hotline, I am not that I was skeptical of Oba, but I am sold on him, and Monday was a special moment, as was the previous week. I think Roman as a heel against Oba as a babyface is significantly bigger than if they play a game of pick'em like with Punk and Roman. So I think in the long run, it just in the medium run, over the next year, it just makes sense to use Roman to help Jacob solidify himself as a top babyface act. Cody can continue to be a babyface, and Oba top babyface, and then eventually, turn Cody because you can afford to do it. Having Roman as a babyface and turning Jacob, I think has a headwind and is the wrong move. And I don't like Roman against Oba as a face-face matchup as much as I like a face-heel matchup. So if they're going towards that, I think a lot of this makes sense. But we're kind of in a playing the waiting game as they fill TV time. So, all right.
What would you think of they head in a direction where you set up Roman, you keep Roman and Oba apart for now, and you set up Jacob betraying Roman when Roman is at his weakest, and then you build Jacob as an opponent for Obafemi, and they become the actual rivalry going forward.
It's not the worst thing. Like, we are choosing between some pretty good choices. I mean, that's not like yawn. It's good. I just think the money match is Jacob as a babyface against heel Roman, and the big money match that they're staring at right now is Roman as a heel, really healing it up and acting arrogant, like you're not going to unseat me, and Obafemi going, "Oh yes, I am." I just think that's printing cash, and so any alternative, good. Yeah, I mean, Jacob be a good heel, but I don't know. I think Jacob as a heel against Roman as a face, and then Jacob as a heel against Oba as a face, you're leaving so much money on the table. I think having Roman get a big head again, and I mean, I just think the pieces are in place to do that, and I like that better. I personally, and just objectively, subjectively, I think it's objectively the right move to make the most money and have a magic peak fan experience. That Sammy in Montreal moment, but with Oba. I would steer towards that. Yeah. All right. This is the Wade Keller Pro Wrestling Post Show for Friday, June 12th, 2026. I'm Wade Keller, host of the show, editor, publisher, founder of the long-running Pro Wrestling Torch Weekly newsletter, predating the internet, predating the first website that was ever launched. You can become a VIP member and look at my writing and my coverage of pro wrestling going back to the late 1980s. The way to become a VIP member and relive, or for the first time, experience our contemporaneous coverage of some of the biggest, all the biggest pro wrestling stories over the last nearly 40 years is with a VIP membership. Our library is up and available with nearly 2,000 back issues. PWTorch.com/GoVIP. You can sign up with credit card, debit card, PayPal, Patreon, Spotify, or your Apple account. It's all detailed there. We are here to talk SmackDown tonight, and you can join us if you're watching us on our live YouTube feed, our live YouTube stream. If you're not, you can join us anytime. Just go to YouTube and search PWTorch or Wade Keller. You'll find our show, set an alert up so that you'll get alerted when we go live. I go live on post shows after Raw, Dynamite, and SmackDown. We also have live post NXT and PLE and pay-per-view shows with different hosts. So subscribe, like, watch, all that good stuff. On the podcast side of thing, which is where most of you are listening to us, thank you for that. If you're not subscribed yet to our podcast, just search Wade Keller on your podcast app, and you'll see a red logo and a blue logo pop up. The red logo is this show, and it also has some other shows that are not part of YouTube, our YouTube feed on there. That is the post show feed, and then also you'll see a blue logo show pop up, and that includes our weekly flagship, pay-per-view previews, interviews, media Q&As, flashbacks going back 15 years and more. All that's free. Search PWTorch and Wade Keller to subscribe to all of our free podcasts. And then, as I said, if you want to get a commercial-free version of those shows and VIP exclusive shows, along with an access to our library, PWTorch.com/GoVIP. My co-host today is Javier Machado. He is a longtime PWTorch contributor and co-host. Always fun talking Bloodline or anything with him, but especially Bloodline matters. And it's good to have you back in the co-host here, Javier.
Thanks for having me.
He writes the WWE PLE pay-per-view, or he writes the WWE PLE previews, not the PLE pay-per-view previews. That's redundant and contradictory in certain ways, and also not contradictory. Whatever, it's wordy. So check out our website, PWTorch.com, for fresh articles from writers that are, I think, saying smarter things in a better written way than all the time you're spending scrolling on social media and reading either obvious things or surface level things or inaccurate things or things written by bots and AI. Settle in, take 10 minutes, read actual articles that people put thought into and have gone through a vetting process to be worth reading. I'm the editor. I wouldn't put something up if I didn't think it was worth reading. So I am lecturing people on a regular basis because I'm trying to do the same thing, is just read long form articles more often, and people who are actual people, and don't get caught up in the dopamine manipulation that your phone is giving you through all the social media accounts that are listening to you. And honestly, just feeding. I'm not a media filter. I don't want that job for pro wrestling, but there's just so much misinformation and bad information and guess news where they guess something and then they want to get the scoop, so they report it and it's wrong, and then they pretend they never reported it. Just skip all that. Enjoy pro wrestling and enjoy PWTorch, our writing, our analysis. Check out the website. Honestly, every time you open up social media and you're looking at pro wrestling, go, did I visit PWTorch yet? Because that's probably going to be more worth my time. All right. With all that said, you can join us here in the chat if you're watching us on our live YouTube stream. We have a live chat on the channel, and we welcome your comments, and we'll keep an eye on them and throw them up on the screen. You can also call us. The link to be a caller on the show, you can turn your camera off, be audio only, like our Blog Talk Radio days, or leave your camera on, which most do. The link to that is in my TV report at PWTorch. I had a wrong link up during SmackDown. I have fixed that. So if you tried and failed, you can now go to the page, and it should be updated. That link changes with every show, so you have to go to my TV report at PWTorch. You can also email us, wadekellerpostshow@gmail.com, wadekellerpostshow@gmail.com. All right, so I was going to say let's get back to our analysis of different segments on the show, but since we have some callers, Javier, let's just jump to them. We'll start with Crofton. It's been a little while since we heard from him. Crofton, good to see you. Good to hear from you. What is on your mind tonight? You can talk Bloodline and King of the Ring like we already did, or feel free to jump into Cody or Queen of the Ring or anything else.
Right on. Thanks, guys. Nice to see you both. And Wade, just like a shout out when you said that your newsletter predated the internet, I thought to myself, I want whatever youth potion that guy's got, because you look really good. Like, I don't know if you moisturize or something, but you should talk to Kit Wilson.
I'll bring it up.
I was
Dove soap.
Dove soap.
Dove soap.
There
Dove
you go.
bar soap. Yeah.
Secret
and a lot of water and very little alcohol and almost no alcohol anymore. I mean, and eating healthy. I don't know. There's what I'd say.
Why didn't somebody write these things down somewhere? It seems like very, very hidden secrets. Yeah. So I wanted to talk, and I respect you guys going with the main event, but like Sami Zayn, he's the guy. We got to talk about Sami Zayn.
We so easily could have done a half hour on him. I'm loving Sami right now.
Right. So as I've mentioned on previous call-ins, I'm a huge Sami Zayn fan and never really understood. I'm a ride or die Sami Zayn fan, you would say. And I really don't understand why, people were turning on him, but then they've leaned into this and have done it in a really interesting way. My question for you guys is, Sami too good at his job? And by that, what I mean is, like, when he slapped Cody today, I was like, good on you, buddy. Slap that guy. What a smug jerk. And I'm pretty sure that is not what they want me to feel. Now, obviously, the crowd in Rhode Island is letting him have it. So, like, he's doing probably what he needs to do. And I actually don't even know where they're going. Like, I don't know where is Sami going to end up being a Weasley heel at one point, and like maybe is he going to have a faction of whiners with Johnny Gargano? Maybe I don't know, but like right now, I love that the exchanges with him and Cody, but I do recognize that it goes back to what you were saying, Wade, about these sort of pick your poison. Like, I know Sami's supposed to be heel in this thing; it's supposed to be maybe a heel and face, but again, like I find myself as somebody who's always enjoyed Sammy, and then seeing him be so entertaining, come out with a shirt with a T-shirt that says like the last good. I'm like, I am on board with Sammy, and therefore it makes me kind of, already Cody had been leaning into some level of heel tendencies, and I don't object to anything he necessarily said tonight when he was speaking truth to Sammy. It just felt like I don't know. I felt on Team Sammy, and I'm not sure if that's what they wanted. When he was added to the ref, I was like, man, I hope Cody gets hosed. And I don't think that that's how they want me to feel.
I think Cody is handling this really well. And I think despite what you just said, I think he is handling it like you would, if he was your son, you would want him to handle Sammy this way. Like, you'd be proud of how he's handling him. He's keeping calm. And then when he needs to shout and get intense, he does. But there's a level of respect and appreciation for Sammy. He said, you got this T-shirt that says you're the last real good guy. He goes, I think I believe that more than you do. I don't see any hints of Cody turning heel. I think that's manufactured, reading into things, projecting, hoping, fantasy booking, social media nonsense. I like it's all been all those things for like a year or two with Cody. I think we're seeing Cody's a really good babyface, and he should stay that way. And I mean, yes, people love and respect Sammy, and that's built into the story. Cody's talking about it. The fans in Europe liked it, but you're right, Crofton. The fans turned on him sooner than the storyline beats were. They were ahead of the storyline beats, and that was clunky for a little bit, especially with Trick. But and that was awkward because Trick was supposed to be heel and people were cheering him. So right now, I think Sammy. People are rooting for old Sammy to come back, but Cody, I think, is a voice of the fans going, Sammy, we love you. We appreciate you. And by the way, in a meta sense, we're really entertained by you, but we really want you on our side, but you're not making it easy because you are framing situations in a way that doesn't feel like you're evaluating them objectively, and you're kind of turning into a whiner. I mean, I left you and you deserved it, then I came back. He's not doing the conspiracy theory thing again, but in a sense, he is implying why, when I do the right thing, Cody, aren't you there for me? And if you objectively look at it, Cody's done the right thing all along. And I think Cody's right. And I nod along going, Sammy, this is pro wrestling. When the match is going on, you try to win. It's not about, I feel sorry for Sammy. He's never been world champ. Let me pull back on it. And so Sammy is the one who is frustrated with things that are either happenstance or him coming up short, and he's not dealing with it in a mature way that seems grounded in reality. That would be my take. Crofton, you can respond to that, and then I'll obviously throw it to Javier.
Yeah, I guess I would disagree with that. Like, he saved Cody and then immediately got crossroaded. I guess I understand that it's in the context of a match, but like, they are friends. There is sportsmanship. We saw Cody versus Randy at WrestleMania, where Cody was exhibiting some heel tendencies in the way that he was fighting Randy. I do think that they are.
I disagree with that framing, by the way. I think Cody was fight. Yeah, I think it's a narrative, and I push back on it all the time. Cody is. I think the intent of Cody doing what you're saying was heelish mannerisms. And maybe there's something specific that I'm misremembering or you're pointing at that I'm not thinking of. I thought Cody just wanted to fight fire with fire. I think it was meant to show that Cody had an edge. And when an old friend like Randy was messing with him and using underhand tactics, Cody wasn't going to be a pushover. He wasn't going to be the so-called white meat babyface to his detriment. He's going to fight fire with fire. I don't think Cody intentionally or even with certitude and without. I don't think there was a time when Cody ever acted like a heel where there wasn't another way to interpret it, and it was like maybe unintentionally left up to viewers to decide a different way. Again, maybe there's an example you can point to that I'm misremembering, but I've consistently pushed back on the narrative that Cody was acting heelish ever in any of this. I think and maybe it just didn't land with some people, but I think he was trying to show, I'm not a pushover. I'm not Bob Backlund or whatever. I will do what it needs. I will fight fire with fire, and I have an edge to my personality and my style.
I just find that in all his interactions with Sammy, he comes across as patronizing when he's when he's in the ring with him, and he expects Sammy to save him, but doesn't necessarily return the favor in a match. I get that in a match situation it might be different, but I think that it's not a clear heel face in the way that you might want for a guy like Cody if you're just purely presenting him as a baby face. I think that there's like the angle is that Sammy whines too much about injustices and stuff, that he thinks that he might be, this. And then Cody, in fact, called him out on it and held up the belt and said, it's all about this. Like, all your actions, the way you're behaving. And if that is true, and likely all wrestling angles lead to the belt, Sammy hasn't, it's not like there's been shots like there was with Randy where he was looking at the belts or coveting the belts. He just came down to this angle with Trick, and there have been these exchanges with Cody for quite some time backstage. So it doesn't really feel like he is coveting the belt in the way that others have. So I thought it was a little out of left field when Cody made that argument tonight. I don't know how you guys feel about that. Let
me give Javier a chance to chime in on this.
The whole story has been Sammy's desperation for, I think, since he's been in Raw. They've been telling the story that he's never had the title and he's running out of time and he doesn't know how many chances he's going to get. That's been the whole story. And that's what Cody said. When he brings up the title, he's not saying it's because you want the title. It's because you're desperate for it, because you know your time is running out. That's what he's calling him out for. And why you're acting this way is because of that desperation. And it was shown when he, essentially screwed over. It was done kind of in a gray way, but he essentially screwed over Javon Evans. He screwed over Javon's ability to defend his title at WrestleMania, because Sammy needed to get WrestleMania. So, Sammy's not been those are the actions that he's been taking, and he's justifying it to himself because he doesn't see himself as a villain. He sees no problem with that. I think one of the reasons that people might feel negative towards Cody is because they are playing it that Cody is a little bit, because of all the stuff that's going on, he doesn't have time for it. And he is being more rude to Sammy than what, you would expect a friend to be. So he has also made some mistakes on his end, but they're not coming from a point of like, I don't care about Sammy. It's just coming from a point, I don't have time to deal with this bleep right now. And that happens in real life. So, but then Sammy's blowing that out of proportion, saying that you've got something against me because, and so it's what it's cool about that story is like, it's realistic on how, like, particularly with people who are, it's like half of my family are, what's the word I'm looking for? They don't deal with stuff directly. Passive aggressiveness.
Yeah. We know about that in the Midwest.
Yeah. So, since you're not, and that's why it's blown up. And I mean, they even play it out. They say, oh, we need to hash this out in the ring. Now, the nuances are awesome in this story because Sami Zayn's making points. He has a point. He's giving his perspective. But he always lands one thing that is, why did you go that? Why did you say that? In this one, he's talking about, I left you lying, but you deserved it. Okay, now you're taking a step back. I'm buying what you're selling, but then now you say you deserved it. You deserved almost getting choked out or getting choked out by Gunther because of what you did that day. Now we're talking about a different story. Now you're like, so that was a step. That was like a step back in that, and he's dropped, because he always says, he points out, he draws the picture, gets you to buy into it, and then he says that one thing that like screws it up. And in a lot of cases, he even realizes it. Like when he slaps Cody, he's like, I wish I could take that back. Again, part of passive aggressive. When you finally snap and you're like, I wish I had taken that back. I wish I hadn't called my wife the C word. Stuff,
clever.
That kind of thing. So, kids, ask your parents. No, don't do that. But yeah, so that kind of thing, which is why
Cavalier. Cavalier. Yeah, I don't like when people call me Cavalier. Yeah.
Oh, I hate the Cavalier.
Cute.
So I mean, that was that's the stuff that I enjoyed in this.
And Crofton, I'll be brief, and then you can respond to Javier mostly. But what Cody said to Sammy is, don't pretend this is about anything but the WWE Championship. So in other words, Cody's just going, You're just frustrated you're not champion, and you're projecting onto me that I am being a bad friend, keeping you from it. And I think I believe Cody is held to a double standard when it comes. I mean, we're like, oh, people love Roman Reigns, they cheer him, and he's like the biggest prick. He's like,
agreed.
He's a dick to people backstage, hand him the belt, although he got better the 2 weeks after I called him out for it. So take that for what you will. Someone else must have noticed that too. And so, but I think Cody's held to a double standard. I think it probably frustrates him in real life. And no, in a way, well, that's a whole other side issue. Because he could be in certain ways a real life Sami Zayn, like in terms of I'm this is my time, but you got Rock, you got Punk, you got Roman, you got all this, and now Oba's showing up, and everyone's stealing what should be kind of my era. And I don't think he whines about that in real life, but I think it crosses his mind, like, what do I have to do to get respect as the alpha? Because he's been the centerpiece of the biggest business that WWE has ever done as the full-time guy in the biggest matches as the babyface. Say everything you will about the bloodline and Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar and all that, but Cody can make his case that either he was or he should have been leaned on more and not interfered with and not been treated. And John Cena is actually kind of maybe number one on the list. It should have been Cody's year, and it turned out to be Cena's retirement year. So in some ways, Cody the Sami thing you can almost attach a lot of it to how Cody should be feeling in a real life meta sense. I tried to refrain from that sidebar, but I couldn't help it. But I think what Cody is saying to Sami should be allowed, which is, as long as I have this title, you won't be champion. He's being blunt, he's being honest, and he's being a friend in a way by saying, Sami, you're trying to blame me on a personal level. The fact is you just want to be champion, and you just are creating excuses when the fact is you're not better than me. I'm better. He should be allowed to say that without people going, oh, he's not being a good friend. Why does Cody have to be a good friend when it comes to being at the pinnacle of his profession when he's got a guy out there who comes up short every time and whines about it? I don't know. I just don't think. I think that's a double. I think Cody should be able to have that without people saying he's being patronizing or rude. I think he's a champion. He's the QB1. We can make fun of that, but he is. And Sami's a whiner, and Cody's just speaking truth to a friend. Crofton.
Yeah, I disagree with some of that, but I take your points. One thing it brings me back to my first question, which is Sami too good at his job? And by that, what I mean is he too entertaining? Is he too, like, people right now they're turning on him and all this.
Yeah, they're saying Sami sucks. Yeah.
But then they're going to like the angle as he starts leaning on this, like, last real good guy and all. Fans become fickle and they switch gears pretty quickly, especially if somebody is entertaining. Just Trick Williams recently brought in as a heel, and it didn't take too long, just through force of being entertaining, for him to end up on the face side. So I guess I'm just wondering, like, you put Cody, I'm not begrudging Cody anything. I'm just saying they put him in a position. Javier mentioned the nuance. There's a lot of nuance in this, which I actually really enjoy. But at the same point, like, if I'm trying to make my lead baby face a real baby face, maybe this is not the ideal situation to put him in. And because of Sami's great performances, is that over time going to, like, chip away at Cody?
I think Sami's entertaining, but I think on shows like this, in the world we live in, I think we overestimate how many people in the audience are thinking, I am entertained by Sami, and therefore I'm just looking for an excuse to cheer him. I think fans show up because, well, unfortunately, I think fans are showing up because they want to be in a communal experience, to chant, this is awesome, get the tables, whatever, Cody Rhodes, all that stuff, OTC. So I go back to that point. But I think there are a lot more casual fans in the audience who are not thinking about who's most entertaining, but they're reacting emotionally to what they're watching. But I don't want to contradict my earlier statement. I think that's ideal, and I think it is a bigger portion than we give them credit for. But I also do think those same fans are showing up because storylines are so sophisticated, nuanced, and layered. They simply are just reacting to stars and want to be part of a communal experience. It's like going to a rock concert, singing the lyrics with your fans of the band. I do want to take you mentioned fans are fickle. I have never endorsed that. I've never also ranted against it. But Crofton, I'm you said it in a way where I can push back a little. I think fans are fickle is a line that is used by bookers who have lost touch with fans. And when wrestlers portrayed in a way that shows a disconnect with what is going to cause fans to react the way that they want them to, and then they blame the fans for their clunky booking that doesn't show a connect, that shows a disconnect from what the fans actually want to cheer or want to boo. And then they come out there and it's like Jerry Lawler, Bizarro World. It's like anytime a crowd isn't reacting how according to script, we just call it Bizarro Land. I think the thing about fickle, I mean, even when Daniel Bryan introduced the term, I think it was tongue in cheek, and I think it's sort of subversive. I think it is. Anytime a promoter says fans are fickle, I think they're creating an excuse for the fact that they took their I'm trying to think of the phrase I want to use. They lost control of the steering wheel of steering the fans in a certain direction. So I throw that out there. Javier, a lot of things just kind of hanging out there. Respond to any of it.
I think you were going for keel. Take the hand off the keel.
No, I don't even know that phrase, so I definitely wasn't going for
it. But yeah, so fans being fickle. Yeah, I mean, for the most part, yeah, I agree with that sentiment in terms of the only thing I'm not even sure if I'm pushing back on anything you said about this, but like fans do change with the heel. The heel is entertaining because I mean, my go-to with that is Jericho. Jericho traditionally comes, will come up with like the list, and at first it's annoying, but then it becomes, people start liking it. And the thing is that then they would actually turn him babyface, or set up a babyface turn. So that's kind of the steps. I think with in terms of with Sammy, is that his whining for not getting a shot, and I had mentioned this that he had like a reason, he had reasons for it because at some point they had like a bunch of people in a match to see who was going to be the number one contender, and Sammy had been asking for a spot, and Adam Pearce gave everybody except him a spot. And this was around the time that Heyman had said, "Hey, don't challenge, I forgot whom. Instead challenge, go to, I'll make it so you could go to SmackDown and challenge, I think Cody at the time, I forgot who was champion at the time." So, it kind of when he started complaining and whining about that, I think that's why people got ahead of it because in general, people don't like whiners. And he seemed at one point and I think this is where he had like, and I think it might've been the booking that the storytelling or whatever the scripting was, that it looked too obvious that he was whining. And I think that's when the people first, this is how the audience first got ahead of his heel turn, was because they read the whining as, okay, this is obviously the thing. And that's one thing where it's not even like a case where we kind of go 50-50 on it. Once people think that you're a whiner, they're gonna turn on you. Later on, when they pretty much I think they finally solidified it. I think everything was like, this was supposed to be the moment when you realized that he's a whiner, when Cody had his explosion on him. And he said, "You've been whining," and he called him straight out at that. That's like the final, like the nail in the coffin kind of, to understand why he's shifting the way he's shifting.
Crofton.
Yeah, I just thank you, Javier, for bringing us to tonight, because I got so stuck on the existential situation of Sami Zayn. I'm not focusing on necessarily the show tonight, and I thought that both guys tonight did an amazing job in that segment and in the follow-up backstage segments and such, to the point that it feels a bit like that Gunther is kind of a +1 on this story, which is unfortunate for a guy of his caliber. And like, to your point, Javier, about there not being a clean finish next week, likely on a SmackDown, where does that leave Gunther afterwards, especially as he just seemed to come to SmackDown for this opportunity? I'm not sure, but I will say that I really, really enjoyed their segment tonight. The intent, they're both great actors for and the intensity felt earned. When Sammy went for the chair, I was like, maybe that was a little over, but at the same point, he's a bubbling pool of resentment, so it kind of checks out.
And like, Sammy is pleading a case that's based on exaggerating ambiguous situations as intentional slights, acting like a victim who is entitled to have his turn on top, as opposed to somebody who has to earn his time on top. And I mean, he is obsessed with framing things that don't go his way as other people's fault. And I don't think that's ultimately attractive in it. But Crofton, you're right. There is the meta entertainment aspect, what Cody said in storyline, which is people really like you. And Cody's like, I think you're a better guy. I think you're a good guy more than I think you even believe it. It's a slogan on your shirt, but you are not you're not the true Sammy right now. I mean, I think Cody is telling us in his response to Sammy how the writers want fans to respond to Sammy, which is, we like you, but we're not going to cheer how you're acting now. You have a bad attitude. Nobody likes people who play the victim on everything. Nobody wants, oh, I'm a victim of bad weather. No, bad weather sometimes happens. Sometimes good weather happens. Like, it's just, that's baked into life. No one's out to get you. Like, it's just, and that's kind of what he's the person who would just complain about something as a conspiracy when it's just obviously part of the way things work. And I think that's kind of Cody's argument about, in the course of a match, I'm going to try to win, and then I'll thank you afterwards. So I don't know. It's fun. Powder of Pizza. Sammy's definitely playing the victim. Nobody likes that. But there's another comment earlier. Powder of Pizza said this earlier. Cody's tried to be reasonable with Sammy at first, but Sammy kept being petulant, and it's the straw that broke the camel's back. But Sadler says the "you'll never be champion" comment was definitely a holier than thou cheap shot by Cody. Why is it a cheap shot by Cody that he is the QB1 world champ who is being pelted with accusations by Sammy that he's a bad person, when in fact Cody can defend instance for instance and be upfront and honest about why he acts the way that he does? And now he's supposed to act like, yeah, Sammy, you're as good as me, I just have had better luck. No, Sammy has to beat him in the ring one-on-one clean, and then he can be champ. And Cody has the right to say, it's not holier than thou to go, you're blaming me for all of your misfortune when it's your problem. You're not a victim. You are deciding your fate through your own actions. And I have confidence that as long as I have the title, you can't beat me. I mean, I don't think that's holier than thou.
I mean, I think the way it came off was not like, I don't remember the exact wording, but it came across like, I will always beat you. You will never beat me ever. And that
in my written report, he said he told him, don't pretend it's about anything other than the WWE Championship. In other words, Sammy, it's not about friendship. You just want the title and you don't have it.
Right.
And then he said, since he has the WWE title, since Cody's saying, since I have it, you never will.
Never. So like, it's just a little, it's like anybody can win a wrestling match at every, I guess I get the sense of being confident and all that, but there is a little there. I mean, it was a little dickish, but I will just recognizing there's another
blunt.
Yes.
Blunt confidence.
I recognize there's another caller, and I just want to give you it. I have another topic.
Yeah, bring it up. Yeah, Darrell's fine. He's on the show a lot. And
okay, perfect. So I wanted to just talk about the Trick Williams, Carmelo Hayes, Ricky Saints a bit. It just struck me when they were out there how they were all relatively new. Like Carmelo's been on the main roster the longest, and I'm not saying that they don't have wrestling experience from other places, but they're new characters. Carmelo's newly face or new enough face. And Trick is called up this year. Ricky Saints just was called up, and then they're in this angle, and there's no like veteran presence that is sort of grounding them. They're all relatively new faces to the audience, and I'm wondering, like, is that a risky thing to do? Is that a strange thing to do, or is that like a let's see who's going to swim type test? Like, how would you read something like that?
First, good fella responding to you as you're talking, Crofton says, good subject. Trick did say leaders of the new school. I love this segment. It's interesting because Trick was supposed to be heel, fans turn him face, and now obviously they're leaning in that way without changing his character all that much, which is good. Carmelo Hayes not doing anything wrong, and Ricky Saints clearly a heel. I mean, shoving Hayes into Trick to try to make create trouble. I mean, that's that's stirring trouble. And so, yeah, sometimes I'm thinking, and I've wondered this too. Are these three against each other because of a master plan, or because they're like, well, there's a history in NXT with Carmelo and Trick we want to play off of, and there's in Saints we want to get in the mix, and we need a heel and someone to do the job so we can protect Trick and Hayes, who I actually think are higher priority right now than Saints, although maybe we'll find out Saints is higher priority than Hayes, but certainly not than Trick. But it's if I'm Ricky Saints, I don't know that I want to be the lone heel against two baby faces, because he has to make fans not be sympathetic. I mean, maybe he's up for the challenge, but when you have two people who are baby faces against you, even if they're not getting along, it takes away some of the natural. There's a natural tendency to think, oh God, he's outnumbered, I have a little sympathy towards him. I don't think that's a huge issue, but it crossed my mind too. Like, for a new heel, do you really want to put him in that spot? But I think Hayes and Trick on their own are popular enough that Saints can be abrasive enough to get through that. Anyway, Javier, over to you on the bigger point.
First a correction. I meant to say Hanan the Tiller. I got my sayings confused.
No wonder I didn't know the phrase.
Yeah, because I got.
I'm glad I didn't go. Yes, that's what I was thinking of. And try to cover, and a made up
even
phrase.
heel. I confused the two.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. But yeah. So and now for the bad news. I think we have what they're testing as the name of the new era, being the new school.
New school. Yep.
Because that sounded like when it came out of his mouth, I heard it in bold letters. So
I know what you mean by that. Yep.
So that I also really enjoyed. That was my thought going through that, is because one of the exciting things is of what's going on now is all the new people that are showing up. With them, Fatal Attraction, Soruka, Obafemi, and Braun Breaker. I know he's been around for a little bit longer, but still
he's in his 20s.
Yeah. So and you're seeing them building up the future of what we're going to be saying, in the years, decades, whatever to come. So there you go.
Holding up the newsletter headline. That was a cover story on May 6th. WWE's top tier in flux headed into summer. The generation, or maybe new school, of early 2020s. Oh, I'm sorry. The generation of early 2020 stars are aging out or getting too expensive. And the whole cover story on just what you're saying, Javier. Just over a month ago, it is. And my cover story took the angle that you said, which is it's really exciting when you have a genuine groundswell of support and excitement in the fan base for new stars, some of whom are getting over more than their push, and at a faster pace than intended, not because of the failure of the older stars, but because they're just that good and fresh.
In terms of the three individuals involved,
yeah,
my gut feeling for them is I think they're comfortable with what they got with Trick. Fans are on him. I think he's kind of like the level that they're looking for the other two. Carmelo has been around for quite a while. They didn't really do much for him until his most recent run. I mean, let's go a little bit further back. The run he had with Andrade, which was basically the wrestling match of the show. So he proved that he could wrestle, and people got into him because he could wrestle. Then his run with the U.S. title, which again, the feud with Dragunov and the other people, again, ended up winning people over. A lot of people were upset that he wasn't at WrestleMania, adding to the Sami Zayn thing.
Wasn't management's fault, but yeah.
Yeah, and it I think ultimately it works for him. And I think he's involved in this, and what they're seeing with this is that, was that a flash in the pan, or can he actually, move a step forward? And now you're giving him history between the two of them. I'm actually kind of upset that's a three-way. I'm much more intrigued with the straight up Carmelo Hayes, Trick Williams match. And I think the reason that they put Ricky Saints in is because for him being the heel, because they wanted the heel involved in the match. And I think their position with heel.
Do you think that if Trick was a heel, they'd be doing Hayes versus Trick one-on-one, and that was the plan, and Saints is sort of wedged in because Trick got over as a face too soon?
I think that's a possibility.
Yeah.
Because I don't think they want to turn Hayes either. So,
right.
and I think with Saints, though, I think that they know that Saints can get heel heat. So I think this is more like a test to see whether he can pull it off. You know, if there's more there. I agree with you that it doesn't feel like they're like super like behind him right now, but they are giving him a shot to see how he shines against, because, you know, obviously Trick is the most charismatic of them right now. Then you have Saints. Yeah.
Is Trick tweenerish? In part because of how he carries himself with arrogance,
I think
and
so.
not pandering, but also because he's not defending his title, which got brought up tonight.
Yeah, which, by the way, when he's just giving a speech and he's talking about losing that made me realize that I was missing something. I thought he was going to say he's going to restart the Open Challenge. You know, that's I thought where he was going to go, and then I think Saints came out. I'm like, oh, that's right, they're in the middle of the three-way feud with those three, so that's not going to happen. But that was my first gut reaction when he was saying everything he was saying. You know, that he had a hunger for competition now, that, you know, and to prove himself, you know. So I think they are keeping him still, like, I don't want to say tweener either, because I mean I think he's meant to be cheered because he is getting cheered, but he's going to the arrogance is going to rub some people the wrong way. So I think he'll end up getting mostly cheers, but the people who don't like, you know, the arrogance and you know, the flashy, you know, clothes and the lemon pepper stepper stuff, you know, they're still going to be against it. But I think that's going to be a minority of the audience anyway. And I think the big test, I think, is for Carmelo, because I think Carmelo of the three is the one that has the least you know, palpable charisma of the three. You muted.
Probably repeating the chat says, unfortunately, he is a tweener. I wish he'd just go blatantly face. One thing I want to warn us collectively about, or caution flag, is we could be sitting here analyzing things in a way that is prescribing an intent that is part of a structure that WWE Creative is not actually aiming for, because we do have Solo telling babyface Jacob Fatu, who's now, like, he's speaking truth to him. Now you're Roman's lapdog. What the hell happened to you? Like, that's a line that a babyface says to another babyface who is now trapped under the thumb of a heel. And WWE is, and it goes back to our Block A segment, you know, our long conversation about this is, you know, are they just trying to, they don't care if people cheer Trick or cheer Carmelo. They just think they have a story there because there's a history there, and they're both young stars on the rise, and they're distinct different personalities, but they share enough in common to be aligned, but now they're not. I mean, like, they may not be looking at this as structurally like their goal is to figure out whether Trick should be cheered or booed. They're just filling TV time with what they think is nuanced, modern wrestling storytelling, and let the fans show up and do their communal chants. So go ahead, Crofton. Yeah.
I'm just surprised they went to Carmelo Trick so fast. Like, Trick has only had one feud with Sami Zayn. Really, he has no history with anyone except Carmelo, really, on the main roster, maybe a few other NXT call-ups, but like, it just feels like they could have had them go in different directions and then meet later down the line when it meant something, and then leverage their story. And that's why I guess the newness of it all struck me, like these call-ups. Ricky Saints, where I'm not even sure where to put him in terms of like, what are his chances of winning a match? Like, I'm not as familiar with him. So like, he hasn't been on TV that long. He's won some, he lost his opening match to Cody. You know, like I haven't pigeonholed him in my mind yet. And yet now we have these three sort of work in progress characters without that sort of known veteran presence that might ground the angle. It's like, we're going to go with these. And so I'm figuring it out as an audience member as I go. And I can imagine that a lot of people are in the same spot. And it just surprises me that I think it's cool that it's all these young guys. It's just a bit unique. And I'm not sure if it sets up for long-term success for all of them. You know, maybe it's a sink or swim type situation, but
it is why I asked Javier, do you think they imagined they said, we got Hayes against Trick this summer. And we're going to pull on their NXT background and their Rising Star thing. But Trick was supposed to be heel.
Yeah.
And since Trick got over, they said, well, now Trick's a tweener. Hayes is a face. So he's just a heel. We can't turn him, as you guys said. And so we need to inject a heel. And hey, Ricky Saints is a heel. We'll throw him in there. And they just sort of said, not perfect, but we're going with it. But Crafty, you're right. I mean, it is. I mean, Ricky Saints is in his mid-30s. Hayes is 31. They're not like
right.
This isn't Sol Ruca and Tiffany Stratton, who are still trying to figure out like even the basics of how pro wrestling works psychologically in the ring. They're acting. I bet they. I mean, I could be wrong, but I mean, you get the sense there's some people getting pushed who really wouldn't be able to tell you all four horsemen.
You're right.
I mean, or know that Alundra Blaze was previously Medusa Michelli, or who Wendy, or identify in a lineup Wendy Richter or Fabulous Moolah. Like, I mean, you do, like, there is a sense that there are people who are just given a script, taught some moves, and they go out there and do it, and they're not consistently very good at it, and often they're, like Tiffany's acting, just terrible. That's not what's happening here. Like, in fairness, like, Ricky Saints has a lot of experience in front of the camera, national TV, and the NWA podium, NWA Power podium, in indie scene. Carmelo has a lot of experience on SmackDown. And Trick, overachieved in NXT, but has been on national TV staring at a camera. I don't think they should be worried about them as I don't mean to pick on the women's division, but that's what comes to mind. I think there's women getting TV time who are nowhere near ready to be in the situation that you're pointing to here with these three men, two of whom, have a considerable amount of experience at this point.
I guess it's more about audience engagement and less about their ability to deliver that I was more,
fair enough. Yeah.
Focused on. Just another.
Trick's 32, by the way, just throwing that in there. He's a year older than even Carmelo Hayes. So we got a bunch of 30-year-olds out there.
Yeah. Real quick on Ray Phoenix. I just wanted to bring him up because I know that there's been quite a bit of swell of momentum around luchadors, and his matches are always very impressive. Again tonight, and I just wonder with Penta and El Grande Americano kind of breaking out as like successful, known for a long time. It felt like Rey Mysterio existed on another plane of existence to the other luchadors that were all trying to live in his shadow or live up to his legacy in the WWE brand, not necessarily in AAA and all of that. Yeah. And they never were able to get there. And now it feels like maybe they are there with Penta. Like he is now Intercontinental Champion. Really, people are excited to see him. Great look, great entrance. But it feels like guys like Dragon Lee and Ray Phoenix are kind of lost in the shuffle, or they end up existing in this like ambassador for Lucha Libre type role, like when they were talking to Chad Gable the other day. Is there anything like what can be done to give these guys, like they're so talented at wrestling, to differentiate them or make them resonate to the American audience? Like, is there something beyond what they're doing? It seems they keep running the same. I remember what was it, Sin Cara? Like they keep running the same playbook with these luchadors that don't necessarily get over. Is there a formula that makes it work so well in Mexico that they're not able to adapt here, and why is that?
I think what worked in WCW Nitro era is how different Ray instantly was to a casual viewer compared to Juventud, compared to La Parka. Like
Psychosis.
And Psychosis. They had distinct masks, distinct looks, distinct styles, distinct personalities. I have typed in my report as someone who has watched like basically every episode of every national WWE and AEW and and WCW show over the decade. Is that Ray Phoenix or is that Dragon Lee? Like I've mistyped it. Like, you're just in the flow of things and it's the masked guy who's trying to be the next Ray. Like they all, even Axiom and Phoenix. I know, Axiom's eyes are covered and Ray's aren't, but like, you don't just, if you kind of like, just, there's not a difference between them. So like, there's not an obvious difference. Like you see Trick and Carmelo, like they're different, like so when you lose facial expressions and you're trying to tell people the culture of the masks is everything, I don't think that's something you can do 30% of the way. So to me, the answer to your question, Crofton, is I think Lucha Libre works if it's pure, 100% immersive. You follow their careers from the beginning. There's a cultural, a community investment over years and decades in the backstories that make it work. I don't think you can just drop it into a WWE AEW style promotion and get that magic. And I mean, I think there could be some wrong lessons learned from a Ludwig versus Chad thing that like blew up in a way that nobody had intended or predicted. And I think you could learn the wrong lessons. And my first thought when Ray and Axiom were wrestling is this is when Vince McMahon during the Nitro era and all these, the luchadors who I just mentioned were getting over, said, well, now we need luchadors. So we're going to bring in all these wrestlers from the other rival company of AAA and have them wrestle. And it didn't get over and the crowds were dead. Like, you have to go all in. You need differentiation. You need some patience. And you need you can't just have them doing high spots. You need to have a strong heel face designation, because I think fans see high spots all the time now, and that's not enough. Did that answer your question, Crofton?
No, it did. What you were saying resonates a lot with how I feel as well. I'm glad to hear that you were mixing them up in the reports, because I feel bad. I do feel badly.
I mixed them up today when Chad Gable was talking to Ray Phoenix. I'm like, is this Dragon Lee or is this Ray? And I'm like, no, it's Ray Phoenix.
I like Dragon Lee's music too. It's funny. I don't, and also all of them generally, English is not their first language, so they have that language barrier as well to deal with. So I feel bad because again, tonight, I really enjoyed match. Like it's just I'm not connecting with the character, but Penta seems to be, connecting. And so I know, like, it seems like it can work. I had sort of given up on it working because as Wade pointed out, it takes so much time and investment and patience. And let's face it, they never have that in any of those things. And so, I hope these guys can find identities that connect, or at least they own the AAA brand and have an ability to work there, which might be the long-term solution for some of these guys. But anyway, gentlemen, I really, really appreciate coming on. I love talking to you both. So thank you so much. And I will sign off and let you get the next caller on.
Thanks, Crofton. I'm always glad when I see that you've called. So thank you for calling again.
Awesome. Thank you. Bye.
Javier, do you want to chime in more? You said you got confused, but do you want to address Crofton's point too? Do you have anything to add?
Because you hit everything I was going to say. I don't know if you saw me nodding, and at one point I got annoyed because you left me nothing. But with just like two slight things. One is one of the things that hurt the luchadors in the WWE for like ever is that it was always obvious that they were looking for the next Rey Mysterio. Mm-hmm. So you are comparing Dragon Lee to the next Rey Mysterio. You're comparing Ray Phoenix to the next Rey Mysterio. And the reason that Penta didn't fall into that trap is because Penta's style and personality is different from
I left
Rey
Penta
Mysterio.
For you, Javier.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate
it.
No,
it's a great point. But like Penta, Penta backs up my point because he is the exception that does prove what I'm saying is a rule.
Yeah. So yeah, I think
even though Penta annoys me, I know. I would curate and redirect some of his charisma in ways that aren't completely dissolving the notion that he is focused on winning a match. But you can have both.
I kind of agree with that. You can do some of that, but he goes one step further than I think he should. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think if different styles also, because that was the other point I was going to make. Thank you. What they made such a big deal of this being Axiom and Penta and Phoenix. Yeah, that they made such a big deal about this representing, because they're fighting for the cruiserweight title, and this is a representation of lucha wrestling. I've seen Javon Evans doing this. I've seen how many other wrestlers we've seen doing, flippy stuff, as you know. So I'm watching the match and I'm like, they're not really being outside of the Mexican Muscle Buster. I don't think that there's any other move that they've done that they don't 100% constantly do.
Yep.
You know, so I'm like, what? You're selling this on me, and I think that go ahead.
And there's things they do that don't look like WWE style that then look to do-si-do dance-si fake, which that's why I say you can't go 30%. If you're watching AAA, it's kind of like, you know, Ishii. It's like you don't pop for him or get him unless you've been watching New Japan. You didn't get in the AWA like Mad Dog Vachon if you weren't immersed in the culture of the AWA stories and the lore. And with AAA, that stuff works in that environment. But when you drop it into a WWE ring and suddenly there's these kind of overly but they're not as bad as at other times. I think they are adapting to WWE style a bit. But the overly choreographed spots are really entertaining if that is kind of what you tune in for. It's part of the issue with like the Danhausen stuff. I feel it's so incongruent with, you know, the Solo Sikoa Jacob Fatu tone in their discussion, or Sammy and Cody, that you just have, you know, this obvious, you know, as Jason, I think it was Jason Powell of ProWrestling.net put it, it's for 7-year-olds and under, you know, the Miz Danhausen stuff, and it's jarring. And so ring style wise, it's jarring to have two distinct styles going on at the same in the same universe too, and that works against it. But it is not a bad thing in the environment that it naturally occurs in.
Well, and the thing, I don't watch WWE for the wrestling. I watch it for the stories, because WWE basically is based their wrestling around a pastiche of different styles. So at one point, the commentary is hitting, well, the fact that Axiom comes from British wrestling, and that's what his style is. But I know what he's saying, because when you tell me British wrestling, I'm thinking the stuff that Zack Sabre Jr. does. I mean, that's an extreme version of it.
Billy Robinson.
Billy Robinson was the person I was thinking. I was tricking. Yeah, you know, that's what I'm thinking. And the only time it really came into play was during the commercial break, where he got him in some llaves for, you know, rest holds, quote unquote. And that was the whole point. But there was nothing really about the different styles there, because they're trying to sell it. It's two different styles. And, you know, Axiom's thing is that he's got the British wrestling, and he's got to use that because, you know, Phoenix, who is a born luchador, you know, he's not going to be able to hit the same thing. And that's great commentary, by the way. It's not what's in the ring. I felt like that entire commentary was gaslighting me, because that's not, WWE's not about the styles make fights. You know, thing. That's not what they're about. They're about what the story means in the entire ring. I'd love for them to concentrate more on that. I'd love for them to be, you know, people who are, you know, the excellence of execution and that kind of, you know, the big guy and this. I'd like to see more variety in the actual style in the ring instead of just the regular WWE style, because that works really well.
I think what we see sometimes is, sometimes I feel when we watch the greener wrestlers do WWE style, it is kind of like, my analogy would be watching the old game show network on cable of like 60s and 70s game shows, but in high def. You suddenly see how trashy the shag carpet was and all the lack of sanding of the wood sets and how things were falling apart. But the TV that it was intended to be seen on didn't show that kind of detail. When you watch some of the greener, and we saw it with the Queen of the Ring opening round match, just one clunky, ill-timed, choreographed contrivance after another. That was just, it was, and you had Charlotte in there as a veteran, but I mean, she was part of most of those bad spots. And, you know, people late for breakups and people standing around waiting for a dive. I mean, it's just, there's so much, much that it pulls the curtain back.
I don't know who put these four women together, because none of them can carry a match.
No. I mean, like Jade Cargill had to just stumble into position for Charlotte to jump and just like play dumb for like 5 seconds while Charlotte took her own sweet time to get to the spot. I mean, it was bad. And when you see WWE style done that poorly, you now you realize, oh, these are people. I mean, I'm watching that match not engaged in an athletic contest. I'm not watching it rooting for somebody to win. I'm watching, thinking about how they planned the spots out ahead of time and how they probably should have dialed back on the things that they couldn't pull off smoothly, because it was one contrived botch and clunky, overly complex move after another. Just, WWE style, the amateurs, and Roman Reigns gets it. Like, people like, oh, Roman's matches are XYZ and in a negative connotation, but he makes the moves he does matter. He doesn't do moves that he won't look good doing. I'm maybe overshining it a little bit, but like, he doesn't do spots that his opponent can't pull off. But it's all about, as you say, Javier, there's a story to be told with the characters involved. Wrestling is sort of the happenstance method of telling the story. But the women in this, and we see it in, it's not just, I mean, there's, at the TNA tapings, Griffin was talking about like a younger wrestler who was out there, and it just felt like, you know, he's just there to do high spots. Like, oh, when's my next high spot? So when you pull the curtain back and you have poor producers or producers who just throw their hands up going, yeah, go do your contrived spot, because you don't know really how to take the fans on an emotion. I used to talk to Steve Austin about this all the time on his podcast. And I was on his podcast like 40 times. And inevitably, we talk about the art of telling a story in the ring by the ebb and flow and the pacing. And you bring them down, you bring them up, you have them in the palm of your hand. And of course, Steve was an advocate for calling spots in the ring and audibles, which is unrealistic with how tightly timed shows are now. And he's come around to, you know, begrudgingly kind of acknowledge, yeah, and he's talking about something that doesn't really apply to the structure of today's wrestling, but there's a lot still to be taken from what he's advocating for. But WWE is two things, ring style wise. It's people who really know what they're doing with an economy of moves, but also wanting to be contemporary if they have the athletic ability, like a Seth Rollins trying to still be, you know, be in the conversation with Will Ospreay, which I think he desires to be, and Finn Balor. I mean, there's a bunch of people who are still really good athletes. Or you have a bunch of really green wrestlers who think it's all about communal chants and overly complex high spots to entertain the fans. And you know, it's I think my point in all this is the younger, less experienced wrestlers expose aspects of WWE style in the modern era that it takes a real polished wrestler to hide how contrived it is. And that's a bad thing. And they're losing the thing that holds WWE style together, which is telling a story with the characters with an ebb and flow. And instead they just do kind of tropey spots and overly complex spots.
Yeah, I mean, even veterans fall for that, because during the main event, there's a point where Jay is down, and it was around the time that we're going for the coup de grace. And like Jay kept like rolling over and over again, like he didn't know where the next spot was. Mm-hmm. And I'm just transfixed. He spent like 5 minutes just rolling back and forth, because you know there was supposed to be an interruption, and then like a bunch of stuff was supposed to go on. It was really complicated, but I'm like, you know, what's going on here? Because I mean, I think part of it is because he's trying to not make it look obvious, but not trying to make it not look obvious. He made it look obvious. So, you know, because it was such a convoluted spot there. So yeah, even a veteran like that happened. So, you know, the one of the other spots that like was really obvious was when during the Lucha match, when Phoenix is running the ropes and he's supposed to deliver a kick into Axiom's head. The kick missed by a mile, and you see Axiom slap his head to make the noise. You know, so that was, and the timing was off too. I think he began bumping before the kick was anywhere near him. So, you know, that kind of stuff when like you miss it, you know, and it's funny you mentioned the HD, like that's kind of like a curse, because now your window for showing light is so much smaller. Mm-hmm. So and then there were also other moments like I don't know if it was that one or it was in the after the women's tag match where it was Tiffany and Jade are basically like brawling with each other, and like the punches look so fake and so weak. I'm like, you know, it looked more like just, you know, as opposed to like an actual fight. So yeah,
it's bad enough that I think WWE needs to figure out why it's this bad, and you know why. It's like the GM who has a high draft pick and they just won't give up on them because they chose them. And there's a sunk cost and an sunk cost fallacy involved. We put so much time into her. We got to give her a chance to get better. And then also the ego. Well, I chose her. I gave her so much time, or him. And at some point, you kind of have to stop cutting wrestlers who are polished in the ring and keeping wrestlers who you think look good on a poster or a graphic on social media, and realize the facade is it's a thread on a sweater, and wrestlers are just pulling on it, and things are just falling apart. I mean, I hesitate to say unravel. The style is unraveling before fans' very eyes, and I mean, and it was absurd when they chanted "This is awesome." I mean, when the fans were chanting "This is awesome" in a match that was at times some of the worst national television wrestling you'll see on a WWE program. That's a bad sign, because what it means is none of the chants are ever. No wrestler should take pride in a "This is awesome" chant anymore. If that match got a "This is awesome" chant, that's just fans showing up going, is it good enough that we can now make it about us? Is this our turn to let the fans know we've been sufficiently entertained? Yeah. So anyway, we could pick on that match more, but
I do want to bring out a comment.
I was going to actually leave, Javier. This is what I was going to do the whole show like this. Like just oh, I hope my headset doesn't fall out. I
just want to say, the most lucha thing that happened on the show was her losing the wig. Because if you've ever watched lucha stuff, lucha, a lot of cases they rip the mask. And the baby face is usually having to fight with one hand and the mask holding on. I was watching that and I was like, wow, this is like the best Jade Cargill, because when she messes up at that point, kind of makes sense. So I was awesome. That was the best part for me.
Totally. For people who didn't see it, there was a spot off the top rope, one of the 18 Tower of Doom spots that these women thought would make this a good match. And her weave, I think it was a wig, got yanked in it. I've never seen anybody so worried about something covering them being exposed. Like, I mean, I'm not laughing at it. I get it. I'm just saying, factually speaking, her preoccupation for the rest of the match was making sure her wig didn't come off. And it was
like the luchador who's covering his face because the mask came off.
But I was worried it was getting to the point where if you're an opponent, the referee needed to warn their opponents, Jade is preoccupied with her wig, and you need to look out for yourself, because it could have led to an injury, because she was taking bumps and doing spots where two hands are the way you do it safely, and she was doing it one-handed because she was so worried about hair that obviously isn't hers. It's not the end of the world, but it's live TV. There was no net. I don't know if they augmented the end of the match because of it, but it was wild to watch. And Javier, I had the same thought. It's a luchador trying to cover his face the whole time.
I was worried with the her finisher when she did her finish. I'm like, how's she going to pull this off without is she asking? I think it was on Charlotte that or could you hold it for me? Because I'm trying to figure. I was worried at that point because the other bumps, they look, but that was the big one where it's like she's supposed to carry her and she's too worried about that.
Yeah. Sadler says, I thought Jade was concussed. I was like, what the hell is going on? You just know, Wade Barrett is this veteran, guy. He's like, oh God, do I acknowledge it? How do we cover for this? Going back to the women's 4-way Queen of the Ring match, Piled Over Pete says, it didn't look like a fight. It looked like cooperation. 93 Octane 67 says, these women are trying to outdo each other with dynamic athleticism. They're chasing a pop. Yes. Thank you. And Nikki B666 says, it seems like Charlotte did all the work to get herself up for Jaded. For sure. Someone posted on a podcast clip of Jade on Twitter saying if she lost her wig in a match, she would die. So I guess she was trying to literally survive if that.
To be fair, like 90% of her gimmick is her look, so like that could be pretty.
she's a heel though, and that could be a bit. I mean, I don't think it's good for her character to intentionally do it, but I mean, heels got to show ass, so to speak. They got to be humiliated and then deny it or throw a fit and make too big of a deal out of it. Seem very vain. I mean, that could be a path for her. I mean, they could have called an audible since Charlotte was winning anyway, and just had Jade walk out and have the announcers go, she's so vain. She was protecting. I wouldn't have done it. I mean, but because the stakes are too high. I mean, for her to do that, it was a mess. It was unfortunate. I'm not taking joy in the fact that it happened. I think we are objectively observing what we witnessed as a result of what happened. Yeah. All right, let's bring Terrell into the conversation. Darrell, thank you for hanging out. What's on your mind about tonight's show?
Yeah, that how y'all doing, Javier? How you
Good.
doing, Wade? I'm enjoying what y'all talking about. That first match and the last match. Oh man, that was something else. That was something else. Jay holding a wig the whole time. Then they bring her back out to get out there with Tiffany Stratton, and then I'm seeing the fakest forearm punches from Tiffany. It just tonight just wasn't it. I like the conversation that y'all was having. I like what Javier said. He watches WWE for the stories. I do the same, but I watch for the stories to amplify what I see in the ring. I prefer you give me a 3-star match, as they call it, but with a 7-star story, and that'll make that a 5-star match to me. And I think
Yeah.
in that first match, that's what they did. The people in the match don't get. They want to do spots instead of telling good stories.
Jason D, a regular caller and co-host at times and podcaster, Javier, he often just says, I barely watch the matches, like just to glean personality and storyline beats. But he wasn't. There's a lot of people who watch for the storylines, and then that happened in the kind of mid '90s 2-hour wrestling era, where it became more storyline oriented and less about the wrestling, and then TV became such a big revenue generator that we had to fill TV time, and to get a bigger audience, it can't just be about holds and moves and international styles and that kind of thing. They just made that decision, right or wrong, that's the way to go. And now there's absolutely a fan base that is more to that, because there's so many matches available right now in order to make them matter when that it's not an actual real competition. A movie can't just be one long fight scene. You need to establish characters and motivations and have a protagonist and an antagonist and stakes. Most of WWE is about that, but you're still asking people to pay money. And I know a lot of people are paying money for ring entrances and to be in the same building with TV stars. And a lot of people are paying, and I think it is a far inferior formula than fans paying because they're invested in an outcome. But you have a lot of fans going because they want to be part of the communal experience, the rock concert experience of chanting and cheering. But you want the wrestling to be good enough that it isn't distracting from the story that the match is supposed to tell. And that's we are seeing a new generation of people rise up, get TV time, who aren't ready for bright lights and high def television with no net. Back in the day, people used to speculate that SmackDown had the less experienced wrestlers and Raw had the better wrestlers, because SmackDown could be fixed in post because they tape on Tuesday and air on Thursday or Friday. And they don't have a net. So that's where the conversation goes to, should there be more house shows? Do you send people to indie shows? Even Corey Graves, I thought it was interesting. He said on Monday, talking about the contrast in styles, where, Sol Ruca is a product of WWE, just like the whole system, and other wrestlers have an advantage who go through the indie scene. And for him to even bring that up as sort of a talking point in the context of WWE felt a little, not breaking the fourth wall, but acknowledging something that's probably more of a private conversation you don't say out loud. But, to say Lyra Valkyria has, worked the indie scene around the world, and she brings a different kind of style because of it compared to Sol Ruca, who's an outsider who just learned in our system. I mean, he's drawing attention to something I think people are going to start noticing.
And she was a person in that match tonight too. So, and she's a person who don't need any more matches like that in her book, early book already, because she know it's like she getting a rap for botches and then hard to get on, and she want to be known for her high spots, and that's it. But she's not known for the storytelling. So that's a thing. I know y'all was having a conversation about one thing that happened in this match and about the crowd and the participation that they want to do. And I wanted to talk about that because I feel like you have to blame the top. And the person that y'all was talking about was Roman. Is he supposed to be a babyface because he's getting those cheers? But to me, he's only getting legacy cheers. He's getting those cheers from the first Bloodline story, because nobody's popping for the stories that he's telling in the ring, which one of the stories that he told is something that happened throughout the show tonight, which was, to me, was a heel Roman, was because you sent those 3 guys to SmackDown and told each one of them something different to do without telling everybody else. and based on the story that you told, and you had Jimmy and Jay tell to him the reason why they joining back up with him is we're gonna let everything be known. We're gonna put everything out on the table. We're not hiding nothing. We're not working for you. We're working with you. And you sent all those people over there to be working with you. You had Jacob doing something that they didn't even know nothing about, bringing Solo back and stuff like that. That was feel like a guy who's feeling his power again and want to insulate himself in. If you're basing off the story, that's a heel line. You don't want people coming after you. You want to send everybody off that. And if they would emphasize that more, that would have meant more for Jay winning, because that's more of a story that you can tell. And to me, that made Jacob kind of again fall to a background player. That's what made what Solo said feel even more important, because it makes you feel like Jacob, you should play in a background player. You shouldn't be. You're not trying to be somebody who's, hey, I'm finna be the top guy. It's like you just falling in line. But that's something that they don't do.
Yeah, when you're talking about like Roman's interactions with Usos too, it crossed my mind. Like there are things that Roman has said to the Usos, or the Usos have said to each other, and where I wish the narrative presentation and the structure of WWE was more sophisticated and less just sort of giving up on making it feel real. And it gets to the thing I harp on about, why are we filming somebody folding their clothes backstage or talking on the phone, and then suddenly something interesting happens that no one, if it were real, would have been able to foresee. I wish some of the moments that we saw Roman directing, saying, Jay, you're the only one who understands, or Jimmy, you need to take control of those I wish were a result of a camera like staying on them longer than they thought. Like the announcer goes, thank you, thank you, Roman, for your thoughts. And then the camera lingers just long enough to catch Roman saying something, and the announcers then go, I'm glad our director stuck with that. We got to hear something I don't know if Roman wanted us to hear. Like, own it. Like, make us feel like we're seeing things we're not supposed to see. And everything WWE does is presented as if you're supposed to see it because it's super contrived and produced, and it takes away some of the feeling that this is a real world that we're privileged to be looking at, including seeing and hearing things we're not supposed to. And I know they believe in this, because they do it when they have the off-mic conversations. When they drop the mic, but they know the audience can still hear, but they're not talking into the mic, they know that has a special feeling, that makes it feel like you're hearing something that you're not supposed to hear. Anyway, so that's a kind of a sidebar to your point, Darrell, but it plays into all the moving pieces that they have here are telling a story, and we don't know if we're having the intended emotional reaction to it, because we don't know the ending and where they're going. And so we see Roman we see him talking, openly talking in front of a camera that makes him seem like he's going back on his word, or he's seeming more heelish or egotistical. And and I think you can't help but watch that and think, that is the narrative structure of the scripted show guiding me. And I think it's more effective, one, if you have confidence in where they're going, and two, it doesn't feel like you're just being intentionally steered, but some things are slipping through we're not supposed to know. That's intriguing. Javier, go ahead with any of that.
I'm going to be showing my age. I don't know if any of you remember an episode of G.I. Joe where a guy calls up and he says, I am the Viper. I will be there at 8. And everybody's freaking out because they're going to the guy's house. The Viper's coming to the house. And at the end of the episode, it turns out that it's a guy with a speech impediment. He's the Viper, and I come to Viper Windows. That was like, you remember that?
I don't remember that, but yeah.
Yeah. So
I remember.
I think that this is why I think that what they're going for is that a lot of the stuff that Roman right now is putting out is meant to be a swerve, that you're meant to think that he's the same bloodline 1.0 Roman when he's a new approved, nicer overlord. That I think that's what
I'm intrigued with your theory that that's what they're doing. I don't know if I love it, but
I'm not saying that I'm not making a value judgment of whether it's the best for business.
Yeah,
I think it will be entertaining in terms of on a longer period. So if this is going to be give him a run as a babyface, have him face heels at first, and then you could switch over to him, being taken, maybe going back to the way things were. Mm-hmm. So I think because I think that you just try to get, if we're going to have Roman for like 1 or 2 more years, before he calls it quits, let's try to do a full-blown storyline that could help not just other baby faces like Obafemi, but also heels, create new heels, because that's one of the issues that we've had for the last 2 years before all these call-ups, is that we've been deficit in either heels or baby faces. So, I think that's where I think that this might be a longer-term thing than let's have Obafemi and Reigns at SummerSlam, basically. You're
muted.
Not to not respond to the point you just made, Javier, but do you agree that whatever their intent is and wherever they're going, that more moments like Sammy slaps Cody, immediately says, "I'm sorry," and then off mic says, "That was out of line," like where you're thinking, this is not. You don't want to make it seem like everything else was scripted and this isn't. That's not what they're presenting. But there's the wrestlers know that they're on camera, on a mic, but then they kind of lose. Like, have you ever been at a restaurant having an intense conversation with somebody, and then like 10 minutes into it, you're like, oh my God, everybody could hear what we were saying. And you just got in your own world, and then you're really self-conscious that like everyone around is like probably listening to you. I that's what I want more often in wrestling, that I feel like wrestlers go from we're aware there's a camera on me and a mic on me to it got so emotional, or there was such a reaction to something that they kind of lost themselves and they went outside of those bounds. And I think this story would work better if we didn't have a feeling that now it's another scripted segment to take us from one stage to the next. I think that is underrated by everybody but me when it comes to how important it is. I'm exaggerating, obviously, but I think that would make a lot of this more compelling, and it would give us more confidence, and I think it would make everything feel more real. And it's not totally related to either your point, Darrell, or Javier, but it's part of what would make, I think, the story more successful.
One of the things that because you mentioned some examples, like there've been times where they finish an interview, but then you see like 2 guys hanging out in the background, like discussing something, and then the camera will zoom in. You can't hear them, but you see, hey, these two who have been feuding are now talking to each other. What's up with that?
Yeah, my issue is when something really important happens because a camera lingered on a wrestler after their interview is over for 6 seconds, and there was no reason to do it except for the fact that something presented as totally unpredictable, unexpected, and unscripted just happened. But because they filmed it and stayed with it, it obviously was planned. And it's hack, it's amateur, it's lazy. And I want this story, if they want us to buy into all the nuance that I think in the end they're going to applaud themselves and pat themselves on the back for, find a structural way to not make it seem like there's no way Jimmy and Jay would say that if they knew they're on camera, because they know Roman will find out about it. But we're supposed to, in this instance, pretend Roman won't hear what they said. I hate that stuff.
So what you're saying is he missed GTV? No,
but the spirit of that.
I know. Sure.
Yeah, but the spirit of it was based on kind of what I'm saying, which is we need to have some moments that were. Everybody should know they're on camera all the time, but there should be a moment where they think the camera's not on them, or the mic stays on a little too long, and it should. And I mean, my narrative rule of presenting wrestling would be the director is on the side of the fans, not the script writers. He's trying to capture everything he can. He's not in cahoots with anybody, but serving the audience and giving them as much of a scoop as they can. And that's where an announcer could go. The director stayed with that scene longer. I don't think Roman's going to be happy about that. They should have cut sooner. Like, there should be a guy defending the privacy of wrestlers when Roman is caught saying something that is revealing. But then you feel like, okay, that was not meant to be part of something that Roman wanted out there, but now we know more than we're supposed to. I think that's a tool that wrestling doesn't use often enough. But your example, Javier, of the wrestlers in the background is a cousin to that, and I love that.
I agree with you, Wade. I feel like you probably, and I would have too, if they would have did like when he told Jay, I want you to go after Cody. I want you to do this. and or when he told Jay also, you understand tough love. If they would have came out, gave a promo, right?
Yep.
Drop the mic and they going out the ring. You have the camera run up to them, and while they walking up the aisle. He talking to Jay. Hey, you understand what tough love is? Show Jacob what this tough love feel like, and I'll need you to win such and such, and I want you to go after Cody. Just like when they in the beginning of the bloodline, what made Roman more intriguing is it seemed like every time he did something, they had the camera following him, or he would grab the camera and talk to the camera. Like when he did that, I think one of the biggest ones was when he was talking to the camera. He said, "Can't nobody touch me. I run all this."
Yep.
That right there. I think they should do more, like you said, more of that instead of the backstage stuff.
The picture you painted, I could imagine a camera at ringside following Roman talking to Jimmy, or following Roman talking to Jimmy from behind. It's not pretty, but it shouldn't look pretty. It should look happenstance and haphazard and some other age, copyright pun. It like having a camera film them from behind when Roman is saying something to Jay, and either Roman doesn't notice or he looks up at the big screen and notices, and then he just shuts up. Anyway, it's a side point, but there are different ways to film wrestling than the way that NXT cartoonishly does, where it just feels like some Disney tweener show where it's just a soap opera meant for 11-year-old girls. And the way it's filmed, people just get used to it. That's just the way it has to be. And it isn't. It is an inferior way to present pro wrestling. And whatever nuance and story they're trying to tell with everybody involved in the tangled web and all the history, it deserves a better structure that would make it feel more realistic. Yes. Yep. Guerrilla reporting, says Powder Repeat. And then I emphasize, it should seem like the announcers and the director are on our side, not propaganda pieces who are doing what the wrestlers want, the promoter wants, or in a meta sense, what the story, what the script writers want. What else, Drew?
I would like them to do more of the vignettes, because outside of the Cody and Sammy thing that they streamed through the night, and the Jacob and Solo thing, I think the next best thing was the vignette again with Blake Monroe. And it seemed like they had her happily talk about whoever just won with Charlotte winning that and stuff like that. They having her focus on the main people and building her up. So building up an anticipation. That's how you add a story to somebody. Now, when she come on the screen, all she has to do is hit a single to get people more behind her, or get more people interested in what she's doing. Because that's what I like.
One big problem is that came very shortly after Charlotte won. And it was
bad placement. They should have did that before.
And here's the thing. I know, I don't want to advocate for the portrait framed big word era of SmackDown, where wrestlers were filmed on their doing selfie stuff on their camera or whatever. But I like having a live Blake Monroe cam, and not like an OnlyFans way, but like people are used to seeing people in a very casual setting right now. And my problem is the fact that they don't even think about it is what bothers me. Like, it doesn't even cross their mind that there might be a better, different way to do it than the way that the inertia and precedent is doing it. They should just say, we're going to now go to Blake Monroe at home, who's live watching SmackDown, who has a comment on what she just saw. And it doesn't have to be quite as polished. It's like why I didn't like the Georgia Stadium Cody room, and with all the cutaways and obvious fake stuff and the multi-camera views of a restaurant conversation where the camera has to be invisible, or it was 3 takes placed together. There's not enough care to make things just feel like a documentary that's realistic. Blake saying the same thing, but doing so, we're going live to her in an unpolished way, but in a glamorous setting. Way more effective than this, because it doesn't chip away at the sense that this isn't just a heavily produced scripted show. I did like her line that Charlotte and Bliss are, quote, a match made in codependent heaven. She is as you said, Darrell, an observer of what's happening, a kind of critic of what's happening, and it makes her seem like she's invested in what's happening in a way where now you want to see her drop herself into the middle of what's happening and see the consequences of her words.
Yes. And I just found that more interesting. I was looking at what they did with Julia. I felt like when they pushed and because they felt like she couldn't hold her in, and I like she. You can tell she really done worked hard on her English because she was pretty good for where she was in the beginning. But they pushed so hard on the other person and making her feel more important that when whatever she was saying to the reporter didn't really make no sense because it was like you are riding the coattail and what did you put in her? She went in there and did all the work. And the only thing I didn't like what they had Julia say was now that I got I'm with my English, now I can speak for myself. I wish they would have took that line out and had her say something totally different because I don't like when they do that. We just come out there, talk, speak how you want to speak, and say you don't no longer need nobody speaking for you. That's why I'm done with you.
I would agree with that. Although when Kiana says she needs me, and there was a truth to it in the past that doesn't exist now. I thought it actually emphasized Julie going, I am better at English now. I do not need you to negotiate, to make travel plans or talk for me. It did make it seem like Kiana took advantage of her because Kiana thought she had her under her thumb, and she's outgrown that because she has learned English. She can fend for herself and communicate in a different culture where the dominant language isn't her language. I actually thought that worked there. In general, I would agree with you, but I think in this case, it was a good counterpunch to Kiana acting like she needs me. There's no way she can and it's like, I don't need you anymore. Listen to me.
Got you.
Yeah. Javier, you want to jump in on any of this?
Yeah, I agree that was a good line to get her back. The thing is, I think because I kind of tell that Kiana James got way over than they were expecting, and it kind of feels like the way that they've been presenting that Kiana is obviously the star that they're pushing and not Julia. It kind of felt like, hey, let's just give it. I mean, I know it's unfair, and that and it's bring into it, but I'll touch stuff into it. But it kind of felt like we're just going to give her something just so that we don't completely murder, her character, and see if we can, salvage something with Julia. That's kind of what it feels like, and I feel bad for it because it's not really her fault, anything that's happened there. But yeah, I mean that's why to me it came out weaker, mainly because of everything else with that relationship. I almost kind of wish that they wouldn't really go into a feud because one of them is going to have to win. It's probably going to end up having to be the one that they're going to push more. So I'd rather them just have broken up and gone their separate ways.
Darrell, we're going really long. Anything else quick you want to bring up before we wrap up somewhat soon here?
Last thing would be this. I know y'all said about Roman and the story they're telling. I wish they would build more heels because right now he has no heel. If you want to ride him as a babyface, he has no heels to face. What made the bloodline work the first time, he had incredible faces to work against. Them 3 matches against Kevin Owens and stuff like that. I feel like you should just go with the story of Oba and just tell the story and just see how Roman, if he flinches, going against somebody that over and that much of a face, and see if that turns him heel.
Yeah. Good. Yeah, good point. And drawn from history in what made him work before. Darrell, thanks. Awesome. Appreciate the call. Thanks for
y'all.
hanging out with us tonight. Yep. Royce Keys. That's a big part of tonight's show. We have not given it the time I think it deserves, Javier. What have you thought of the what would be the word? The courting. There was another word I was searching, but the solo courting Royce to join him. What's that? Recruiting? Yeah, it feels more like courting than recruiting. Both words work, but like there's something about it that feels more personal and intimate. Like he's playing to. It's not you'll be good and help us win. It's you deserve better. You are one of us. We go way back. It feels where he's courting him to join their side of the family and understand. Yeah. And so there is in what happened in this match, and you can make the argument. Yeah, he needed. I think Solo's point got backed up when, especially at the beginning of the match, when all three just turned and attacked him. Like, this guy's big and strong. Let's go after him. They were, they were trying to give Solo's argument credibility right at the start of the match. Where do you think this goes from here? Because you did get Jay landing a top rope splash on him. and then stealing the pin. So Royce is going to be like, wow, it's supposed to be every man for himself. It was 1-on-3. And in the end, Jay turned on me. Maybe I do need some friends. My pin got stolen.
Oh, man. With Royce, first I just want to mention that he definitely belongs more in WWE than he did in AEW. He fits a lot better there, the way they tell their stories. Because at first I'm actually interested in him. My only issue with the story is that the whole courting thing's gone on for quite a while, and I'm kind of hope that they pull the trigger on that sooner rather than later. But you've got the whole relationship between DP and Truth, and so I think that maybe big picture, if there are setting up another feud between Bloodline and Solo's group, MFTs, he probably needs to rebuild. So I think that ultimately he might end up betraying Priest and Truth and joining Solo if they're going to go head into that feud, because he needs bodies, and Jacob could also switch sides too. So that way it become more of an even fight with important people. So that would be my guess. Yeah,
I agree that he's given more to work with and is doing a better job in WWE. We saw a little bit of that half upper lip snarl that he leaned on too hard in AEW, that I think WWE just said, don't do that. We want you to grow beyond that one thing you can do, like Rock's eyebrow. We got a little bit of that when Jimmy came to ringside, but it reminded me of how much he's expanded his range as a person, as a character. They showed him in the opening signing autographs for fans. Mostly they show wrestlers arriving. They showed him signing fan autographs. I don't know what to read into that. Maybe nothing. Maybe it's not worth reading into. But if you're about to turn him heel and you're showing him taking time to sign autographs, does that make it sting more if he turns, or is that an indication he ultimately isn't? When you look at the lay of the land, he does seem like somebody, and I've been told he is going to have a chance to be a, top tier guy or have top tier moments at the very least. They believe there is potentially something there where he can be an opponent of every top star in this company, even if he isn't a top 6 or top 8 guy ultimately. He is someone who can be a plug-and-play opponent for them. And that's the impression I've been given from inside. So I look at it through that lens and go, is he going to be either a face or a heel over time, depending on the need? That you say, if we have 6 top faces and 4 top heels, well, okay, Royce, we got to turn you so it's 5-on-5, or vice versa. So it's going to be interesting to watch. But ring work-wise, I didn't think tonight was a great night for him. It wasn't a disaster, but I thought there were some things that just didn't go super smooth in the 4-way setup too. But I think he's somebody who is going to benefit from, if he can stay healthy, just having more experience against really polished guys in the ring, opponents in the ring, who can work with him and take advantage of his style without him going to 1980s tropes of no selling and dropping a strap and making a face to the hard cam and then doing a power move, which unfortunately was, in one sentence right there, the totality of 90, maybe it's contrary to say, the totality of 90% of what he did in AEW was that. No sell, snarl, at the hard cam, lower his strap, snarl, and hit a power move. He is growing beyond that. It's going to be a little bumpy here and there, but I've been way more impressed than worried with what I've seen so far, both in terms of the acting and in the ring. I can't remember what the specifics were, but I remember thinking this. If someone is a critic of his, they might look at a couple moments in this match and go, see, he's not ready. We can't count on him yet. If there's a top guy, skeptical of working with him in a top program, there might have been a couple things tonight that worked against that, but not big things. Anything else you want to add to that, Javier?
Yeah, he's someone you probably want to pair off with ring generals, and at first. I had another thought about that, but I forgot. If I remember, I'll mention it.
Pile Driver Pete, I'll throw his comment up. I really like what they're doing with Keys. This is a story where I want to know what happens next. Yeah,
I remember what I was going to say. I think what he is, he's kind of like that draft pick that's high enough where they're going to contribute, but with the possibility of them maybe being a star player.
Yeah, yep, a rotation player as they call them in sports. Satellite Version 3. I like the Keys solo story. My worry is that we've seen Keys as a heater in a faction 80,000 times in AEW. He was in like every heel faction there. LOL. I hope he doesn't resort to that in the MFTs.
If he does join the MFTs, he'll have a bigger role.
Yep. I there's fewer. Yeah, I have more faith in that too. Javier, anything else you want to add about tonight's show? I know we ran long here and had a couple good calls and all of that. Anything else on the show that you want to bring up?
Just something that I saw that was a nice thing, a positive thing for LA Knight. I think this might have happened in the commercials, though. There's a spot where Jay is doing the punches and everybody's yeeting, and then LA Knight takes over and starts hitting Jay. But before he does that, he says, he says, yeah, kind of priming the audience to like go yeah when he starts punching him. I thought it was a nice way to play with the audience and try to get that the audience involved in that.
By the way, we said we didn't talk a lot about Keys. What about LA Knight? A lot of people thought he should win or would win. He took the fall. Did anything jump out in terms of the story that they're telling with him, or was he just a cog in a machine that was built around other wrestler stories?
I gotta say, I think he has been the best, most compelling cog that they've ever had, because he's basically just there to I'm like he like a mechanic, but not like a match mechanic, but like a storyline mechanic, being used to actually keep stories fresher than the other would be. Like he doesn't really he shows up and I'm like, oh yeah, that's right, LA Knight is here and he's going to make this a little bit more interesting. I think it's possibly because he's so, when he talks, he's so, kind of like Kevin Owens, where he speaks the truth, but without the little bit jokey, oh, I can't believe this is happening kind of thing. More straightforward. He feels at times he feels like he's the realest thing on the show. Yeah, I get that. I will say, we always say it's not an LA Knight match without a botch, something mistimed, or a slip up. Same thing with promos. I mean, I feel a little guilty bringing it up, but in his promo tonight, he said that he can defy the odds, talking about the match. Do you know what I'm about to say? Is it when he called him Jimmy?
No. He says,
so something else. Okay.
If I can defy the odds, I'll wear that king. And he pointed to his head, meant to say crown. There was this briefest moment of panic, and he's like, do I correct it or not? And he goes, I'll wear that king to the front door of Reigns and stomp him out. And I was like, he butchered the context, but there's something about just seeing it through to the end with confidence that made it just skate by without it being a disaster. But he did not land the plane. It was a bumpy landing of the promo. It was not smooth. It's very LA Knight like. I'm gonna wear that king in the crown. It might have been the him confusing Jimmy and Jay that threw him off. Yes, you're right. There were two, not just one, in this promo, and he did self-correct. So I don't know what it is with him. I mean, it happens. I mean, but there's so much he is having in the last month or so, the best mic work I've ever seen him do, because it feels less. The shtick is still there, but it's less entirely based around shtick. There's substance. There's grit to his opinions and the way he says them that lands and feels authoritative. We did have a super chat. I can't ignore it. Don't want to ignore it. Nima Pazar says, guys, could we see Sammy win the title from Cody at Money in the Bank, and then Jay challenges Sammy at SummerSlam? Someone else had brought up, why aren't we talking about Gunther being champion at SummerSlam and the King of the Ring winner facing Gunther? So, I mean, it's not inevitable Cody's champ at SummerSlam. Yeah, but I don't know. I think that's going to be, you pair him off with so many people, and I think that's going to be more exciting overall. Gunther's kind of been there, done that. He's not really hot right now, and Sammy, you can't reward this version of Sammy with that, with a title run. You can't do that. I mean, that goes against he wins the title after he gets out of this funk. Right, and that's why I think Gunther winning a triple threat, because Sammy cost Cody, or Cody cost Sammy, in a triple threat. If Gunther wins, I haven't thought it through enough to think then, because then you could do just Cody Sammy 1-on-1
Yeah,
whatever.
You
Without a
could
title.
have Gunther win it, and then the title's just not going to matter for SummerSlam. But I personally don't like that idea.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Javier. Thanks, chat.
It is
And,
85 degrees here, Wade. At night.
You mean like at night? That's a lot. That's hot. Or in your house?
Well, my room right now is reading 83. So.
Oh wow. Yeah. All right. That's hot. Thanks, Javier, for not passing out.
Yeah.
All right. Take care, everybody. I will put the VIP graphic on the screen. We'd love to have you support us with a VIP membership. PWTorch.com/GoVIP. PWTorch.com/GoVIP for full details on supporting us and getting a full membership. Thanks, everybody, and we'll talk to you Monday after Raw.